customer sat, return on investment, and efficiency factors. And that's what I am. I'm an efficiency guy. My work ethic is very strong. It's very contagious. I'm very passionate about what I do, everywhere and all the time, whether I'm at home in the private sector or leading into my public sector experience. I ran for school board a decade ago, and I took that same passion, that same conviction, that same sense of urgency, where the role I served in was to represent the people who voted me into that seat. So I took it very strongly that I had to be at the table as a board member for a school board to ask questions and to delineate details out of whatever was being asked of me. And if I couldn't get there, here in my head or in my heart, I voted no, which was a very rare thing to do back, by the way. I stood out because I told him right up, I said, you owe me a very clear explanation or I can't be a yes. So I made the people asking for products and services and tax dollars and policies and procedures and educating kids to prove what they needed and why they needed it. So I really rose the bar, if you would. I helped raise the bar of efficiency and execution in the school board level. And it was always a conservative element that ensured that, because I was a T-cross and I-dot guy all the time. And I made it very clear to them in that day. I was also board president my second year of my first term, which is rare, but that's because I wanted to get in there to accelerate and getting things done quicker, which leads me into my last comment about myself. Elected to the assembly in 2018. I asked a lot of questions my first term. And one of the answers I heard from many people was, you'll figure it out. Well, I figured it out. And I don't like how they make sausage in Madison, Wisconsin. I don't like how they make sausage in general in governance. And I don't like how they do it in Washington, D.C. as well. I am not go along and get along. I do not pay to play. I do not tolerate mediocrity, learned behavior, and status quo. So my second term, which is the one I'm currently in and finishing up the rest of this calendar year, essentially, I've focused on getting what the priorities for the people are, to get them done, to get justice across the line. And I really embraced this election integrity issue because it needs to be. It's the most important thing in our country right now, the most important thing in our state. We are losing our republic every day. We allow this to go on. Every day we let people hate on us and deflect us away from the truth, which is all I'm after. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not crazy. I am focused on truth. I'm very passionate about the revelation of truth so that we can get to the detail and the facts so that we can have closure. I need closure because right now I'm apprehensive about voting. I was apprehensive on April 5th here for the spring election. I'm going to be quadruply anxious about November 8th this year, and I'll be actually rather nervous around my primary, which I expect to win on August 9th, because of the games that still can be played with our ballots, with the Wisconsin voter list here in Wisconsin, with the chain of custody, with the machines. I mean, there's a lot of areas where people can manipulate the outcome of elections, and it's got to stop. And it will on my watch. I'm concerned that nothing much happened between the legislative body and its inability to sign on to AGR 120 to reclaim our 10 electors, because we have a plenary right to do so. I also would say that the governor hasn't done jack on the right thing of buying for the people, because he's part of the cover-up. So we have two bodies that should have served of buying for the people that didn't. And I'm in the middle trying to make that happen, and I continue to push for that. Thank God, and I do thank the Lord every day that we have many people that are seeing the light, or, let there be light, right? So they're seeing the light and they're coming to want to gravitate toward truth as well. And many of them are on this call, and many of them are out in the trenches working through the patriot groups and the grassroots groups to help bring truth to our situation. And I'll close on this comment. We have some dramatic evolution in truth regarding True the Vote and the issues around the cell phone ping data that was collected and that they've analyzed. And as I heard tell, there is current activity where county district attorneys and county sheriff offices are looking into the data to investigate to the door of the person that holds the phone, according to the address data they receive from the ping elements, So we're going to have some people in the state of Wisconsin, about 138 of them to be exact, that are going to have knocks on their doors from local law enforcement, and they're going to have some questions to answer about where they were on these certain dates when apparently they were stuffing boxes full of ballots that were fraudulently created from our desperately lacking Wisconsin voter list. So the drop boxes helped that happen. Inability to keep the eligibility files clean by the Wisconsin Election Commission helped that happen. The Wisconsin Election Commission broke 16 statutes during the November 3rd, 2020 election, and nobody's been held accountable yet, but I do see something coming someday soon to help make that come to truth as well. So a lot to talk about. I guess I will give you one final comment and maybe we'll talk about it. All of the legislative bills, whether they're resolutions or bills, Senate bills, Assembly bills, all of it, if they weren't addressed to pass through a floor session to get thumbs up or thumbs down and or signed off by the governor, all died on March 15th of 2022. That includes Assembly Joint Resolution 120. However, a week ago tomorrow, I resurrected AJR 120. It is now LRB 6309. So we have a refreshed version of the same legislative opportunity to take action on the rest of this calendar year. All it requires is an extraordinary and or special session, and we move this bill to the floor and it can be acted upon because it's not dead, it's very alive, and it's everything 120 is and more. I did modify the words. I took, if there was the word decertification anywhere in it, I took it out and I had it replaced with either nullify and or reclaim to address the ballot specifics or the votes specifics, so we could have a tighter, thank you, David, we could have a tighter focus on the language so that there wouldn't be excuses from the naysayers. So I also added the paragraph toward the end that incorporated the report that came out from the special counsel, Michael Gableman, on March 1st. And I took language from that item as well and added it to the back. So we've got another element of evidence that says we need to move on this as a body. And we should have moved a long time ago, but we're still pushing to move on it. So I think I held the floor long enough. I'll relinquish it to the esteemed Adam Steen.
Thanks so much, Tim. I appreciate it. So everything that Tim just said is it's very pointed, and so many people like to throw darts, and they throw darts and rocks from their glass houses, and they don't realize what they're doing. And I think it's very important that we stop hiding and we start stating facts. We like to use conjecture in politics. I've said this too many times, but I have to keep repeating it. Politics is made up of two words, poly, which is many, and ticks, which are bloodsuckers. We should not be talking about politics. We should be talking about public policy. And everything Tim said applies to public policy. This is not a left or a right issue. Election integrity matters to everyone. And if that doesn't scare you, that there's some people that are willing to brush this under the rug and ignore it, it should. So I sent out a press release on Tuesday, and our esteemed Speaker of the Assembly made a comment. He said that Steen is blatantly twisting the facts to fit his narrative. I don't know what you guys read when you were little, but I believe it's called the pot calling the kettle black. When we have politicians that are willing to stand up and say that we are twisting words, the election was clearly not run correctly, guys. We can call it what it is. Tim, you chose wisely. You chose words that were correct and accurate in the resurrected bill. I think that's excellent that you did that, because so many people put you in a corner and they want to say that, oh, you can't decertify the election. I believe it was Justice Gableman said that fraud vitiates everything. And that is extremely important. This is basic knowledge. Every attorney knows this. But I met an attorney the other day, And they gave me some really, really, really good advice. And I wanted to pass it on to you guys while we're talking about these topics. They said, never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. That was the first thing they learned. And the second thing was never ask a question that you don't want to know the answer to. And that is where we are. We are looking at very wise and smart people that know exactly what questions they do not want to ask. So what we're talking about is bringing forth bills that will hold people accountable. Tim is very right. We can't put anybody in jail, this group, but we can hold them accountable. We can pass laws that have teeth that will hold them accountable. And it is up to us, the people, to stand up. So sorry, David, I didn't give any of my background, but I grew up in Indiana on a farm, guys. Once you start talking about this stuff, it's very easy to keep going. But I grew up on a farm in Indiana, moved up to Wisconsin, went to Maranatha Baptist Bible College, got an engineering degree at Madison, worked on the assembly line as a welder. And I've been down here in the southeastern corner of Wisconsin, been a service manager, used that expensive engineering degree. And my wife and I have two daughters, an 8-year-old Ella and a 3-year-old Abigail. And so many people ask me, why would you do this? Why would you run for this office? And I'm just sat with my daughter at breakfast this morning. I said, why do I go to meetings every night? Why do I not take time to play with my children in order to accomplish a greater vision? And I looked at her in the face and I said, this is not for me. This has nothing to do with Tim, nothing to do with David, nothing to do with Jonathan, Carol. This is for our country. And we start at the state level. We can have the most impact on the state level, and we can affect the greatest amount of change. So when I have politicians say things like this, I've got another quote for you guys. When we have politicians say, this was our speaker replying to my article, I've always taken our right to vote very seriously, which is why I was the leader in the fight for voter ID. In case you're curious, that is one of the weakest comebacks to election integrity that I have ever seen. And the people are done, guys. The people of this state are done. The gloves have come off, and we are not going to sit back and play nice anymore. We've asked questions, we've demanded answers, and we've gotten none. So from this point forward, we will be asking extremely pointed questions. And if the speaker chooses not to answer those questions or answer them as if the people don't have a clue what's going on, that's his prerogative, but people's eyes are open. So I'm here to step up and serve and to bring forth the Constitution and the values that we hold so dearly in this country. Thanks, David.
You're welcome, sir. I thank you guys so much for that. I did want to say something, if you guys can hear me. I do understand that Voss has, he's played a lot of games, and I do understand that one of the biggest tricks that attorneys will try to play on the people is to omit information. That's from Luke 11:52. The Bible tells you, woe unto you attorneys, right? And it says, because you hide the key of knowledge. And then it tells you, them that were entering in, you hinder, and you're not going in yourself. So what we have learned is better to study the law for yourself and become more knowledgeable than the attorneys. And I believe that is the case of what we are seeing here, and is going to lead into what I wanted to discuss next. We've been studying the law for years and looking at what it is that we notice that the courts and the attorneys are leaving out. And our big thing was, as a people, to start coming together, looking at the law, understanding exactly what the duties of the government is. And then once you understand what the government must do, then you can hold people accountable. Now, in most cases, when you look at Representative Ramthun, he is ostracized in a sense by his colleagues because he's doing exactly what the attorneys don't want to happen. So in other words, what I've noticed about him is that he will do what's right, and he will put everything on the line, himself, his future business, everything, to do what's right, even when people aren't watching. And I can tell you guys one of the things that happened that really made my heart fall in love with this man was when Carla and her team started to send notice out to the legislative body members. Representative Ramthun was one of the ones who started to step up and hear early. Now, for many people out there in the world, they kind of wonder, does it work to talk to your government officials? And the problem is many people have sent emails with no law, made calls yelling and complaining and mad with no law or no solution. And so Carla and Jonathan and the team sent out a lot of notice. And that was one of the first things that I wanted Representative Ramthun to talk about, is the importance of people understanding the law and sending notice with understanding so that he has something to work with, because he opened the door for people to actually have discussion with the government. And a lot of what you're seeing today, most of this stem from him responding to the people and taking massive action. So could you talk about that for us, please, Representative? Uh-oh, you got to unmute.
There it is. There it is. Operator error on my end. Okay. Sorry.
You touched it.
Yeah, you're talking about affidavits, correct? Yes. Yes. Well, they helped. Certainly didn't hurt. I believe I envisioned the probability of the origin of obstruction in the assembly, which is the speaker, to run out the clock. We had a lot of talk from essentially December of 2020, January of 2021, where we had talk about investigations and audits. And the forensic audit term got real hot in March and April of 21, and it got real deep during the July, August period of time. However, it started to show patterns of repetitiveness to me, where all it was talk. It was rhetoric. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and this is this, and that is that, and you know what? And nothing was getting done. And I think the turning point for me, in conjunction with the affidavits and the push from the people, was the Racine County Sheriff's element, and how they revealed that the fraud had occurred in the nursing homes there in that county, and the guidance they had gotten directed the nursing homes to break the law. And when you compound one county across the state, which is 71 more of them, or a total of 72, you have quite a few individuals, about 92,000, I believe is the number, in the state of Wisconsin that were affected by illegal guidance from the Wisconsin Election Commission. And the Wisconsin Election Commission was working on behalf of the legislature to run point for the elections process. And there was essentially a contract between that agency and the legislative body. And when that contract was broken because of the fraud, as you had stated earlier, fraud vitiates everything. There's two elements of that expression on page 5 of the former AJR 120, the current LRB 6309, where it speaks at the Supreme Court has found that fraud vitiates and nullifies any contract, and that's Boyce's Executors versus Grundy in 1830. That's 28 U.S. 210. And then the term fraud vitiates the most solemn contracts, documents, and even judgments. And that's United States versus Throckmorton in 1878, 98 U.S. 61 and 64. Those two items really called into question how the Wisconsin Election Commission needed to be held accountable for its violation of state statute. So right around the same time, we were getting kind of great.
Tim, let me say real quick, that
Okay.
one is also crime. When you have a statute that's obligatory,
Yes.
so they have an obligation to follow the statute that you guys put in place, and they interfere with, somebody interferes with the duties, or somebody does not do the duty that they should, it would be considered crime even before a judge says so, because the people can enforce that. But go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, David, for that clarification. That's really good stuff to have as well. So the word crime does apply here. And so
And it vitiates everything.
Yes, it does. I mean,
Yep.
we're talking like immediately, and no questions asked. And you don't need to have all of the fraud.
Mhm.
Some fraud is all you need, and we had plenty with the nursing homes. So that's what prompted me to suggest, well, let's just move on from this thrashing and rhetoric of investigations and forensic audits, and let's just ask the question let's reclaim our 10 electors, because what went down on November 30th was uncertifiable. It was done illegally. It was wrong, and it should have never been certified. Now, at the time they certified, with all the noise with the mystery around COVID and all of the conjecture that came from that, and they didn't have all the evidence, so they kind of moved forward with certification out of habit, learned behavior, which I also don't tolerate very well. Okay, fine, but time doesn't stop the process of becoming educated, and the original act should not be carved in stone. When you ultimately find fraud that vitiates everything, you should still be able to go back and do what you should have done in the first place, which is not certify the election. Now, the fact that it already was certified, then it became of, well, we should either nullify the election or reclaim the electors. The word to certify comes up. I'm not a big fan of that word, but anyway, reclaiming the 10 electors, because you want to say, well, should have never been certified. They should have never gone to DC and been part of the congressional action on January 6th. So we're just going to pull our 10 back. And frankly, Wisconsin only takes that action. All that happens is the individual who was appointed the presidency loses 10. He goes from 306 to 296. Nothing much happens after that unless other states join in. You have to get below 270, which is a constitutional requirement to be in the seat. So we would, the nation would need more than just Wisconsin to do something, which to me is down the road and subjective to what other states do, whether it be Arizona or Michigan, for example. But if those two states were to do something, you'd have 37, 10 from Wisconsin, 11 from Arizona, and 16 from Michigan. And you'd have 37 off of 306, that's 269. Now, even if you took those hypothetically, for those out there, what about these other, what if you took those 37 and added them to President Trump's, he would be at 269 as well. You can't add them to him anyway. But my point is, nobody would be at 270. So that would become a constitutional crisis. And as I understand it, David, check me on this if I'm not quite right. I'm not an expert like you are, but then it would go back to the House of Representatives, and every state would get one vote. And whoever has majority from a party perspective within each state, like Wisconsin, for example, it's 6-4 in Congress. You got our U.S. Senator Johnson, and then we have 5 of the 8 seats, or 4 of the 8 seats. Anyway, Wisconsin is 6-4, majority of Republicans, right? So the Wisconsin vote would be a Republican vote. And I understand in the nation, 29 states are Republican, 21 are Democrat led. So 29-21, if every state would vote their party line, you would have a vote for a Republican president. Now, it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be the individuals that ran in 2020. But it would probably be a Republican elector that would be put into the seat. And that's how that plays out. But that's further down the road. We've got to get the resolution to the floor and get it voted on before anything happens.
Let me say this. So there's two things that could happen. And you made an important point about the people and the pressure of the people. So the first thing that we have to look at lawfully, and you said something that was very deep when you talked about the fact that they broke statute. So breaking the statute is considered what is called maladministration, and it's also a crime. So this isn't a crime where somebody gets hurt. It is a crime where somebody does not do what they swore they were going to do before they got elected. This is what makes it damning. So when good faith, right? Every single duty that was given in the statute or in the Constitution is based on good faith only. If anybody fails to act in good faith, they kill every bit of power they have. So now understanding that, when you talk about decertification is a word that many attorneys will like because they could say we don't see it in the Constitution or in the fundamental principles of law, which they won't tell you about those. In the fundamental principles of law or the work of Koch, you're going to find that anytime someone does not follow the proper form, they nullify the whole proceeding. Now, the truth about what happened is we grant authority to government officials. They can only do what they have the power to do based on what we granted. This idea of we could do anything that it doesn't say we can't do in the Constitution is a bunch of bull. So understanding that, when you look at what they did on the 20th, you guys already proved that they didn't follow the law. And I'll tell you, there was a woman in our law groups, right, who came and said, hey, there's something going on. My friend in Wisconsin, her relative voted when she couldn't vote. So we said, did you give her an affidavit? And we told her how to put together an affidavit with the right jurisdiction, and she turned it into, I think, your district attorney. And then the district attorney saw it and like, oh, what's this? And gave it to the sheriff, told the sheriff to investigate. So they got caught on the back of what they did. Now, the fact that the sheriff came out and verified that they did not follow all these statutes, right? And the legislature knows they didn't follow all these statutes. What the attorneys would like to say is, well, we didn't know at the time, so it's too late. You already certified it. That's not true. And here's why. We never granted in the Constitution the ability for government to certify something that was illegitimate. So if you ask Boss, decertify right now today, him and his attorney is going to say, we can't decertify because there's nothing in the Constitution that says we can. I'm going to say, okay, cool. So show me where in the Constitution it says you can certify something that the form was incorrect. Now, when that question is asked, what it does is it forces them to say, well, we can certify something that's incorrect. And then I can show you in the maxims of law where it clearly says anything void in the beginning or not following form, you cannot validate by subsequent act. So the legislature can't verify it or certify it. The WAC or whatever they're called, WAC, I will call them WAC because they're WAC. They can't certify, right? The Electoral College, Federal Congress, nobody can certify something that's not done according to form. So that's the real question. And if you remember, Mr. Gableman said that the acts they did not follow the law. They are void and voidable. Now, here's the deal, Representative. You guys can just declare something is void. Now, they're going to say this. They're going to say, well, no, you can't. You can't just declare as the legislature, or I'm not a Viking king dictator that's going to do everything by myself is what Boss is going to say, even though he's making contracts by himself with Gableman. What's going to happen is they're going to try to say you cannot just claim or declare something is null. So I'm going to give you precedence. That's the biggest precedence in America. Y'all remember we used to have a king and he used to send officers over here and they wrote pretend legislation to say they could take our stuff and all that. How did we let them know that we weren't having that anymore? We kind of just came out of our mind and just said, I declare we don't like you, screw you, bye, right? And what happened? We became a new nation. So with the power of the people, along with what you're doing, Representative, they already broke the law and they cannot declare that this was certified. It is already a nullity. Now, there's two ways this can happen. They should follow what you say if they're smart, because if they don't nullify immediately based on what you say, the Constitution also says, the Constitution's plural and fundamental law, that he who has the power to institute also has the power to abridge. If you remember what Gableman said, the powers that the legislature gave to the WEC are not irrevocable. Meaning we can take it back at will if y'all wanted to. Now, Boss isn't going to do it because Boss is playing a game. But we don't need Boss to do it. And I'll tell you why. Because if they don't follow what you say, which would be the smart thing to do for them, the people also have given power to the legislature, and that's why you see it in the state and federal constitution. So we gave the legislature the authority to handle elections, and the people also wrote it in the United States Constitution that the states would take care of that. That wasn't irrevocable. So if you leave it where you don't listen to Mr. Ramthun, you're going to have a problem because the people can remove the power at will. And I'm going to say, I believe the power of the people will do that if they don't listen to you, because the people right now today are going to see, no, they're good people in government who want to fight and do what's right, who listen to the law. Because when you heard what the attorney said, you didn't just take what they said. You actually consulted with more attorneys, constitutional authorities, and you actually dealt with the people and allowed the people to have discussion with you. And you're the first person I've ever seen who put the discussion on the public record. There's no running from this. Like, you've literally done everything you should do as one of the true public officials to completely trap anybody who does wrong.
Kind of the definition of leadership, isn't it?
There you go.
And courage and conviction and passion and urgency, and those attributes have to be in any and all public servants in order for them to be effective in the job. If they don't have those elements, then they shouldn't be in the seats. But thank you, David, for that. I see Mr. Voss has his hand up. We should let him.
Go ahead, Mr. Voss. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're all right. I just wanted to, so I'm a bodily injury claims adjuster. For a lot of people watching, I have a real world example to exactly what you speak of in regards to contracts in good faith and bad faith. I get accused and I get threatened by attorneys' offices every single day. Oh, you as an insurance company should not be operating in bad faith, right? Something specific to California. And I know that, this is not necessarily getting into the weeds, but it applies. The law implies in every contract, including insurance policies, a covenant of good faith and fair dealing. The implied promise requires each contracting party to refrain from doing anything to injure the right of the other to receive the agreement's benefits. So when we give consent to be governed and they breach that contract, they're injuring all of us. And I've made a public declaration that I withdraw my personal consent, but I just wanted to share that because that's a real world, everyday dealing of what we're talking about here. And you make contracts verbally, in writing. You do it through powers of attorneys. You do it through notaries. You do it through all these institutions that we have. And I would even be so bold to read scripture from a contractual perspective. Try reading the Bible and reading the Holy Scriptures in regards to this contractual law. And I would even argue, read Matthew 17 when it talks about the temple tax very quickly. And when they came to Capernaum, they that received tribute money, talking about tax collectors, came to Peter. Peter opened himself and said, he took upon himself an agent standpoint of Jesus. And they came to Peter and they said, does your master pay tribute? Does Jesus pay taxes? Peter said, yes. He took an agent standpoint on behalf of Jesus and said, yeah, Jesus pays taxes. And when they come into the house, Jesus prevented him, saying, why do you say this, Simon Peter? Why are you speaking on my behalf? Peter entered Jesus into a contract on behalf of those tax collectors. And if you continue to read it, in regards to this perspective, it's amazing. It will change your view. And it applies to our Constitution. It applies to everything that we do. So I just wanted to provide those two real world examples every single day where good faith, bad faith, contract, injuries, and I remember when we served those affidavits of maladministration and treason to the legislatures, and Representative Ramthun had reached out to me and he was a little concerned. He said, well, I'm doing what I need to do. You know what I mean? And we said, Tim, you ain't got nothing to worry about because you are fulfilling your role. You are doing your duty. You are abiding by our contract. He was the only one that I can say of, and that's why I'll give this man everything that I have to support him and to keep it moving forward. So with that, I'll turn it back over, but we love those who love faithfulness, and Tim is a true faithful servant.
Amen. Amen. I'll tell y'all, this is what's super important. See, the emotion that Jonathan just has shown, there's so many people in the nation today who believe that government will never listen. You're wasting your time if you're talking to them. He just told you what happened with him when he reached out to Representative Ramthun, and look at his heart. Look at John's heart. He's breaking down because of the love he has for a man who has stood up in the middle of crisis. This is what every public official should fight for the love of the people that they have sworn to protect. And that's what you're really seeing here. You're seeing the people, you know, as average men and women being able to talk to a representative, and the representative, he said he reached out and said, "Hey, what's going on here, man? I'm busting my butt. What's going on?" That's a mighty thing when a representative reaches out to you, because they want you to be okay and your family to be okay. And this is the main message that America has to see, because we have real leaders, right? Real people who are servant leaders. The people in the Bible were not leaders as elders because they just said, y'all better do this and do that and do this. They were servant leaders. They showed people how to serve. They showed people how to belong to God, how to walk with God. But when you deal with real people in government, we got Representative Ramthun here, and we have Mr. Steen here, and they are talking to us about the powers of the people and the law so that the people can be edified. This is totally opposite of what we've seen in the last 100 years. Now, I do want to show this real quick because I said something about crime, and I don't want to say things like that without showing it. So I'll do it really fast. But I want to show in the Maxims of Law, this is a book by Charles A. Weissman. There's a collection of 1,600 maxims, which are the fundamental law that cannot be argued. So when you look in your bills or declarations of rights in your state, and in many states, including Wisconsin, it tells you in the beginning that the people have the right to bring the government to a frequent occurrence to fundamental principles. That means you can teach them what the fundamentals are so the government doesn't get into any crazy schemes, right? It's going to be simple. So let me show you guys what it says here. And this is going to be, once again, from the Maxims of Law. Hopefully you guys can see this screen. And if you look here at 26.0, Henry versus Bank of Salina, 5 Hill, New York, 523, 531. Crime vitiates everything which springs from it. So what we got to understand is the attorneys want us to look at things backwards. They want to say something has sprung forth and we certified it. Well, the problem is when someone does not follow the form and the statute that the legislature put in place or what we agreed upon, it becomes a crime. And then the crime vitiates by itself everything which springs from it. So when you look at any certification, any stamp, any seal, if there's no jurisdiction to stamp it because it's not certifiable, it is vitiated. So literally a declaration by the people or the legislature could erase this whole thing. So I wanted to show you guys that. Summer, did you have any questions? Because we have you on here. We haven't given you a chance to speak.
Oh,
Summer, you here?
well, yeah, I'm here.
Let me mute.
Well, I actually wrote two. So if either Tim or Adam want to just, answer it or whatever, just for the people to know that are listening. But here's the first one. We know that Robin Vos has admitted publicly that the 2020 election had widespread fraud and that the crimes were committed by not following existing election laws by those that conducted our elections, making the acts and the results from those acts null and void. We know that we, the people, gave the legislators the authority to oversee our elections, and anything that we gave them the power to do, we also gave them the power to undo. He now claims it's out of his and the legislative body's hands because the Wisconsin Election Commission controls it. But the people did not give that power to the WEC, the legislators did. Charles Weissman, Maxim 11B states, derivative power cannot be granted. Then cannot be greater, sorry, than the original from which it was derived. Why do you guys think that Voss is blocking the people's demand for remedy?
Adam, I'll arm wrestle you. Who wants to go first?
There's too many reasons. I mean, I guess I'll give the simplest one, then Tim can give the easier two. So the simplest one I can think of is there's something to hide, right? If you have absolutely nothing to hide, we've said this for almost 2 years now, guys. All we want is free and fair elections. I can sum it up in 8 words. It's in person, on paper, hand count, one day. But whenever that gets told to a legislature, any legislator, except for Tim, they panic. Well, that can't happen. Well, what we're facing is a conflict of interest, right? We're in a 2-party system, guys. If you want the interest of the people, you elect people to represent you. You do not elect a politician. And I believe that's exactly where we are right now, is we have politicians that are trying to hide behind a veil of anonymity. So after you, sir.
Well, the origin of obstruction has been Speaker Voss, period, end of story. Why? The question is why. In my opinion, and when I'm governor, he's going to be investigated because I believe he's compromised. And I would also say that when he was part of the violation of law and allowed for 500 drop boxes to be implemented in the election, and there's documentation that proves he supported that, September 25th of 2020. That included Senator Fitzgerald as well. So the two of them had to participate in that wink, wink, nod, nod authorization to make it a legislative act, which goes back to David's comments earlier. The Wisconsin Election Commission worked on behalf of the legislature, essentially had a contract with the legislature, and the WEC needed the sign off of the 2 leaders that represented the legislative body in order to break the law. So I believe the individuals also, there's, to Adam's comment, multiple reasons. This election was about people, not to them, not about process. You had never Trumpers, you had Trump haters, you had people who were making sure he was not going to be reelected, and you had people on both sides of the aisle participating in the fraud. And that's why it needs to be investigated at the personnel level, because there were things that were done and said that allowed for this injustice to happen, and it involves the office of the speaker. So, you know, you asked the question, and I believe that's the answer. Now, until it's my opinion, until it's fully investigated and formally investigated, and perhaps, you know, clarification is given and charges can be filed, you know, it's my opinion, but that's the answer to the question as it was asked. You can't act like that, like he has the whole time, and not have reasons, financial, maybe promises were made, maybe he knew he was breaking the law, and if they dug any deeper, he could end up in Steel Bar Hotel too. I don't know, all of the above perhaps. So that's what I've been up against. And so as I spin with thought, let me get this off my chest. Socrates, for those of you who knew of the philosopher in the Greek medieval days, and he basically created the Western philosophy that we see in play now in our country. He was born in 470 BC. He passed away in 399 BC. So he lived on this earth for 71 years. And during his life, even way back then, he said, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. So all that the people who attack me have is name calling, like conspiracy theorist or crazy whack job, or Tim doesn't know what he's talking about, or Tim's, misinforming the public, he's lying. I seek the truth. I tell the truth. Everything I say and put in print has cited information or data that backs up the statement. I don't make any. What sense would it make for me as a public service to be untruthful? It makes no sense, and my Christian values won't let me do that anyway. So all they have on me is name calling. So I'm not name calling the individual involved here to answer the question. I'm stating an opinion based on his behavior and his lack of doing something when the right thing to do was right in front of him the whole time. And I even gave him the mechanism to do it, and he still was reluctant. Why? Because he can't afford to have the truth come out. That's how I feel about it. And it's always been that way. So he made it personal by name calling on me. I was just focused on truth. I was focused on process. I tried not to get too close to the name, to the name element or the people part. But when Let There Be Light #5 press release came out, and it clearly delineated the difference between what he should have done and shouldn't have done versus his involvement with NCSL and CEIR and NCSL, that's where the truth really got close, and that's when he retaliated against me, because I was over the target and dropping ordinance right on his head. So very, very, very scenic answer, Summer, to your question. But I believe when you're compromised, you'll do anything to not get caught. And that's what's going on with our state legislature.
Okay. The second question I had kind of goes along with something that I just dug deep into. And I'm just curious what your guys' take on this one is. But do you think that it's a party issue, since political parties are not mentioned anywhere in the Constitution? And do you think that they should have the right to interfere in the people's business based on the will of what the county party us to do or not to do? Because they've been kind of blocking us on quite a few things.
Well, you're extremely right. The Constitution doesn't give any guidance on party affiliation. And I think, in my opinion, that was on purpose. They saw the founders of our country, no matter what your belief structures are, they're extremely wise men. I believe they had been taught a lot of knowledge from their past. Their parents passed down knowledge. Their grandparents passed down knowledge that they had a good grasp on reality at the time. And what we're facing now is a complete lack of knowledge. So when they wrote that document, they did it for a reason. And if you look at the system in which we have right now, we have decisions being made not based on the will of the people, but based on the will of the party. And so the hardest part for many to wrap their head around is we are in a two-party system, and it's us against them. And until we have men and women that are willing, and I hate to say this, but no matter their party preference, if we have men and women that are willing to step up and serve for a term, I don't know what that term is. I said three consecutive terms in Congress, or Congress of the Assembly, that's 6 years. But I believe when you are in a position of, as we've made it in this country, authority, right? As a Senate representative. But when we're in that position in Madison, I believe you lose touch with the people you're representing. And that is exactly the issue that we're facing, Summer, is you have men that have been, let's take my opponent. We can break this down real quickly. When you're in a position for 17 years, you think you make friends? You make a very comfortable group of friends. And if you don't have to have, they're not your friends, you make enemies or people that you can control. And when you have that environment that's so tied to that position, because you're holding on so tightly, you will do anything to hold on to it. And I really believe we're just talking about a specific position right now, but let's look at the Wisconsin Election Commission. We had the Government Accountability Board from 2008 to 2016. We slapped some lipstick on a pig, changed the name, reshuffled the deck, and now we have the Wisconsin Election Commission.
2014.
Thank you. So once that was created by the will of the legislature, right? They wrote the law, they gave the authority to the Wisconsin Election Commission. Then you have the president of the Wisconsin election, chairman of the Wisconsin Election Commission, Mrs. Wolf, running the Wisconsin Election Commission, and somehow, mysteriously, is now the president of ERIC. So George Soros founds an entity called ERIC, and Robin Voss creates WEC. And somehow the chairman of the Wisconsin Election Commission, now the president of ERIC. So Robin Voss is supporting George Soros funded election scheme, if you will, because Janelle Branchen said very clearly in her hearing that we still don't have the results from 2020 that ERIC was supposed to give us clarity in our elections to clean up our election, our voter rolls. They were going to help us, but they don't even, and nobody can see the contract that is formed between George Soros's funded ERIC and Robin Voss's Wisconsin Election Commission.
Now, let me ask this, because I got to jump in real quick with that, because I didn't know that. So from what you're saying, if there's conflicts of interest and contracts that are signed, and maybe this is a two-part question. If there is a contract signed by Robin Voss, right? Is that automatically a contract with the people?
As the speaker.
So think about this. If Robin Voss is the agent of the people, any government official is only an agent of the people, right? So if you're doing something with the power of the people, how does it not include the people? Kind of like the same thing with ledge counsel. Mm-hmm. How do you have attorneys who you're making a contract with to give you legal advice, but the principal of you are not allowed to talk to the same attorney? How is that possible? Go ahead.
I'll give you a real life incident regarding this issue. In March 10th, Representative Branchen chaired her first campaign elections committee hearing when they talked about Brown County. Eric Cardall was there. I sat 5 feet away from him, and that's when I knew if it happened in one place, it happened in every place. And that's I think when I went all in March, and I got even more all in July. But anyway, back to my point. From March 10th to March 23rd, we had a floor session. AR-15 was written by the vice chair of campaign elections, Representative Sanfilippo, and it passed the floor party line. At the time, it was 58 to 35 because some people weren't in their seats, had a couple of opens. John Nigan had resigned. So anyway, 58 to 35, I think the vote was. And the body, the majority, the Republicans said, we need to do more for campaign elections. Let's get some help in here. Well, it took 60 days for the speaker at the state convention in June to announce that Justice Gableman had been hired on or would be offered the job. And my first question was, how did that happen without the body? Why didn't we meet and talk about what we were going to physically do to follow up on AR-15 as a body so we could give guidance to the speaker to execute the plan that we approved as our speaker? He did it all himself. That included funding. We never voted on $676,000 as a body. Where'd that money come from? We got slush funds down there that I don't know about. I mean, I should like to know where that money's going. And I'll tell you what, when I'm governor, I'm going to find out where that money is, because we're going to make sure it doesn't go anywhere but back to the people.
Hey, Tim, he said that the reason that he did that was so that he would take all the flack. He was taking one for the team, that he made the contract for him.
That was a non-disclosure. That was the non-disclosure agreement with the special prosecutor. It wasn't a contract. And quite frankly, if he's working for the assembly body, he should have been assigned to the campaign elections committee as well, and he wasn't. So that was a crap answer then, and it's a crap answer today. And it was done as a ruse to fool the people. And I'll tell you something else while I'm on a roll here. My entire body in my legislative, all of my colleagues, all of them, and I hope some of them are watching this, they've been deceived since day one by the same guy who wanted to control the narrative, wanted to control the message, wanted to control the contracts, control the money, and tell them it was going to happen this way because he was trying to protect them. Are you kidding me? That's not what it was for. It was for the agenda to make sure that truth would not come out, period, end of story. So that's how this happened. And everything that's transpired this whole past year and a half is evidence on top of evidence that this guy's been doing this on purpose and blocking it. And now he's trying to dismiss it like he was being a good guy and doing his job. What a bunch of crap.
Tim, I gotta say, what you're saying is 100% true, because, it's kind of funny. We heard in several states, because we've been teaching a lot of the legislators, Josh Barnett and I, across the country. And what you'll find is different state representatives came to us and told us, oh, we're being told by speakers and different people in the legislature, let's just all team up and try to block all these people doing notices and affidavits and coming at us and asking questions. Let's block them. But what happens is the people with good hearts, this is what I tell people happens when you do notices or affidavits, you make a separation between the good and the bad, right? The good are going to stand up and say, hold on, I'm not rolling with y'all. This is wrong. We made an oath to these people. Amanda Chase said the same thing for Virginia, right? Well, we heard that the government actors were trying to block, which for us is beautiful. I'm happy that some of the people will do what they do. Because when they block, and I don't like the way that they try to lie on you, Tim, but I do like the fact that you stood up against them, which most people in the world won't do. And when that happens, it causes a divide, and then the people get to see it. See, usually there's too many cowards, so they just tuck their tail and they let the guy who's been the boss forever run the show. But when the people start standing up, and then government officials who are right start standing up and saying like things like you just said, we can now see the problem, which we could never see before if somebody didn't stand up who was on the inside. Now, I want to show something real quick, because if he did that, if he did not talk to you guys before getting this consent decree or agreement or whatever he wants to have, you call it, put in place, the fundamental principles of law says some very simple stuff about that. So I'm going to show it real quick. And I think that it'll bless us all. And Tim, if you want us to get together and do something about it, we surely can. And I promise you, they're not going to like what's going to happen when the people stand up to deal with this. But if you look here, you see 4G. Can you guys see this? Can everybody see?
Yep.
Okay, 4G. Whatever things or rights that are acquired by an agent are acquired for his principal. So the very fact that Voss set up this agreement, the people can come together, write notice, and let him know that it's a trespass against the people if he doesn't give us full and complete access to everything in the agreement, and give the people the power to make terms and control the agreement. Because really, the agreement is made by the power of the people. Now, it's really deep in all of these issues where you talk about agency, right? You talk about an agent. So if we in the Constitution did not say that Voss can, if he says you can't decertify or you can't do, I don't have the power to do an audit, it belongs to the WEC, right? But then he hires an agent to go and do an investigation, right? It shows that he is lying. 4C, what I cannot do by myself, I cannot do by another. So if he says, well, I can't take this action, but I'm going to get somebody else to go take the action, which we know he did that in order to cover up what you were demanding. Because what you were asking for, Tim, on behalf of the people was utterly dangerous for him because he was doing wrong. See, we can clearly see he was trying to control the narrative, and that's why he made a contract without everybody else's consent. So he used the authority of the legislature in and of himself without the other members of the legislature, which he has to have a quorum with, to make a decision. The only reason you would do that is to make sure that you covered everything that happened and nobody else got access to it.
And
now,
it kind of backfired on him though, David.
Oh yeah, it truly backfired as an act of God, because when he picked Gableman started telling the truth. And when Gableman started telling the truth, it caused a problem. Because Gableman telling the truth allows for, once again, the people to see that all this talk about this being fairy tales and getting mad at Tim was literally smoke and mirrors. It was a fraud. It was fake, right? Tim was right. All these other guys were wrong. So then it goes a step further. So remember that Mr. Gableman put out his report recently, right? And we all got to see that report. So we came to Wisconsin. I'm bad. My Ebonics are bad. But Wisconsin, when we went there, we came there, Josh Barnett and I, because of the work of Tim and the work of Carla and the work of John and the work of Summer and that whole team. So we came to Wisconsin, and Mr. Ramthun was at a meeting, and he was sitting down, and it was a meeting with Voss. That was a private, public meeting, I guess, but private.
Wait.
And
Voss actually kicked Tim out.
I was just about to say that.
This was
I
March-
sat
March-
there.
March 16th, yeah.
I sat there and saw Voss kick him completely out the room.
You know why I did it?
Because you're a good man.
Well, thank you for that, but no, I'm a good man because of the Lord, but no, what he did it because he was sending you and Josh and Ivan and everybody else in the room a message saying, I'm in control here. That's what bullies do, so that they get you on your heels, and he can control the tone of the meeting and hopefully the narrative. Now you blasted him with facts, and he walked out of there going, holy smokes, widespread fraud. He said that by the elevator as he was being
Right
pummeled.
beside him, he was sweating.
So Tim, you didn't get to see inside the meeting, but I saw him do that, right? He did two dumb things, and we got to catch him. And I'm gonna tell y'all what the freak I said, because you deserve it, because you are the one who fought for right. Carla fought for right. I serve y'all. I don't serve this Voss guy. So I'm gonna tell y'all what happened. So he kicked you out the room, right? And he did try to set the tone. He asked a question in the beginning. He said, I want to go all the way around the room and ask you guys who all's attorneys and what law school you went to. And I looked and almost fell out my chair laughing, because here's what Voss doesn't know. Nowhere in the Constitution of the United States of America or the states does it say that the legislature can have a group of private bar attorneys telling them what they can do, interfering with the people's business. But I can show you in the state constitution, I believe it's Article 23 in your state, or 25, possibly 23. It tells you that the people have the right to frequently bring you guys to a recurrence of fundamental principles. So the people are supposed to teach the legislature. It also says the people have the right to assemble for the common good and petition the legislature. That means teach you guys what the law said. So when he said that ignorant stuff about which one of y'all are attorneys, I knew he was trying to set the record, but you got to remember he messed up. Because you, Tim, months ahead of time, put our argument as non-lawyers on the public record before Gableman. So he didn't realize, he knows what we said because of you. And Gableman agreed with us and talked about the common law in his document. So you got to think about this. In the appendix of a Supreme Court justice, he didn't say this sounds like a crazy talk argument. He said, oh no, the common law says you can do this. And he said two words, fraud and the illegalities made this void and voidable. So he literally said the same thing we said in the notice that we did, the memorandum that you put on the public record, Tim, months after we said it. So when we are in that meeting, he has the same problem that the lawyers had when you blasted them the first time. Because if you remember, the attorneys were saying, we can't decertify, we can't do this, we can't do that. And in the memorandum, it said this. So because it didn't say it in the Constitution. So where in the Constitution did it state that you can have private bar member attorneys that can make decisions for the legislature? And is that a double standard?
Well, that another element of his putting you all in your place was to marginalize you as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you asked a question about something that, thinking, well, not everybody in the room was going to be a high-end attorney, just so you could segregate out which opinions mattered and which one doesn't, perhaps. But he wanted
I love that.
He wanted to marginalize the room too. So that's how he works. But I
He
went
wanted
out.
to.
Yeah, I went out and I basically told the media they should be upset that they're not in the room. And why are they standing quiet for the fact that there's a public event going on behind closed doors and they weren't involved?
Mhm.
And he turns around, 8 days later, 16 and 8/24, March 24th, when they had the campaign elections committee hearing, that was okay to have an open hearing. That was okay to have cameras. And then you bring an attorney in to drop a negative comment about you can't decertify. That was all scripted and orchestrated as well. I got to go back to Summer's question though. I want to, Adam had something and then David, you jumped in. She asked, was it?
Remind me to come back to what I needed to say though, what happened in the meeting, because you need to know that.
Thank you. Let me get this off my chest. So, because Summer was, she's still on yet. She asked if it's a party thing. I think the answer is no, because you look at the behavior and actions and inactions of the speaker, and you look at the behavior and inactions or actions of the governor. They both didn't do anything to rectify this problem. So it's beyond party. It's down to personnel issue. It's about power and control and hiding something because you're compromised. So that's what did it. And of course, you got the learned behavior element in there. And this guy thinks he can go out, the speaker guy can go out and he can, whatever he says is truth that's carved in stone, even to Mr. Steen's comments earlier where he kind of blasted him in a post. If he thinks people believe everything he says, I think he's going to come in for a rude awakening, because just the opposite's happening, in my opinion. Every time he opens his mouth and says something, I believe the opposite, because I don't think he's used to ever telling the truth anymore. Everything he says is misconception. It's lies. So anyway, David, come back to what happened in the room, please.
Okay, so here's what happened. He did that little thing where he went around the room. So me and Josh didn't say a single word almost until the end, because the attorneys were kind of like having their fight, right? And what happened was, for attorneys, their biggest thing is fraud. But the problem is when you claim fraud, you have to prove fraud, right? So then you have to know who did the fraud and you have to point them out, or in a court of record, you can't bring a case. So if you say, I know they committed fraud, I saw it on the machine when I was hacking, you can't say that because you can't bring hacked evidence. So you have to know, I was standing right next to that guy. I saw him put that in the ballot box. Here's his picture. You could do that, but nobody did that. So here's how we dealt with the issue. I asked Voss one question after all the attorneys were going back and forth. I said, Mr. Voss, I said, I just want to ask you one simple question. And he said, okay. I said, Mr. Voss, can you tell me if you, as a member of the legislature, have the power to certify something that was invalid in the first place? And I just shut my mouth. And he's like, well, yeah, you do. He said, if we had a title to a car and somebody stole the car and then somebody came later and stamped it, they get to keep the car. I said, what? I said, you believe that based on fundamental law? And he looked and he realized what happened to himself. He realized that he was sitting here making an argument that you can stamp something that was a nullity, right? That was gotten illegally. So he started thinking within himself and he got really confused. Usually that guy flies off really fast with the answer. He didn't fly off real fast with the answer after that one. He's like, of course you can. What about a car title? Then he realized how stupid he sounded. So then he said, well, and then you could see him looking within himself for an answer. He couldn't find one, right? So he turned to the two attorneys on the screen and he said, guys, do I have this wrong here? I mean, maybe I got it wrong. See, when you have two attorney arguments, you can argue all day because that's how they build their arguments. When you come with a fundamental principle argument, it shuts down everything. There's no more arguments. So his attorneys were sitting on the other side. You saw their shoulders touch. Their shoulders kind of did like this. They slumped their head down and put their head down. So he realized, holy crap. The attorneys on the video, one who I guess dealt with Trump, the guy couldn't answer with law. So here's what he said. He said, well, I believe, or I think that, and then he started talking about how we just can't decertify because it's not in law. Now, that's nothing about what I said. I said, where did you get authority to certify something that's illegitimate in the first place, right? So he was busted after that. So now he realized, holy crap, these people all in the room know that I did something and we did something that you don't even have the power to do. So he started choking up, right? And then there was one other question that I asked after. I asked one other question, and I can't remember now, but it was a similar type of question. And he was confused and thrown off. So now he knew that people knew the things that were wrong. He knew about what happened with the laptop. He knew about all these different things. So when he walked out, he was off because he realized he was caught. So now he had to tell. So I'll tell you guys what happened next. So he came out and said in front of everybody there was fraud. Now, 2 weeks before that, William Barr came on video and said, hey, there was, this is all fairy tales. There was no fraud. Trump is a clown. You know, he was just, you know, trying to just fight to stay in office. Well, the day after Robin Vos told about the fraud, all hell broke loose. And most people don't know this. But William Barr came out and started telling on the news media the very next day, oh yeah, it was election issues. And the person on the news media helped him by saying, are you saying that kind of like, I'll just say the word? Was there like an attempt to like a coup to, you know, take over the election? Like, was it rigged? And he said 100% it was. Then he came on the news another day or two later and told the people got the hot potato. They know what's happening and it's in their consciousness. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this as the people, not as government, not as police, right? So Voss opened the door. Now it caused a catastrophe in Arizona. Right after Voss said that, William Barr came out and told. Then right after that, Arizona Attorney General started trying to say, I'm going to now refer Katie Hobbs for charges. Then right after that, Katie Hobbs came out and said, oh, well, there was 10,000 plus ballots that were not signed for, that were not checked, even though she said the election was perfect every day before that. For 2 years, she'd been saying it was the perfect election, nothing wrong happened. The day they said they were going to prosecute her, she came out with stuff that'll get the Attorney General for Arizona in trouble. So she said it was 10,000 plus ballots that had signatures on it that were not verified. Now, why would she say that? Because she knows it'll slow down Arizona's Attorney General who is trying to prosecute her for new stuff. She brought up the old stuff because they were all colluding. So what we're seeing, Representative Ramthun, when he kicked you out of the meeting and called himself trying to control, the attorneys were having a battle. We only said two things. Me and Josh literally said two things. And after that, he broke. He literally broke. If you look at him on the interview, he's sweating and he's trying to talk and he's stuttering on the interview. And it's like, but that's what happened. He literally was shook. And when he left out, of course, and you could tell that he was frustrated and mad, and he walked by us and we're like, look, we can give you all the maxims of law that show you exactly what we just said. You can't run from that. You can't certify something that is a nullity. It's impossible. So he knew that. So now he has to tell, but then try to discount anything that could be done. So he said, yeah, there was widespread fraud. There was fraud. Well, the word widespread fraud or fraud really is him saying Gableman has shown me that they did not follow the law, which is exactly what Tim said, which means the whole time, ever since he had Gableman, he's been getting reports that Tim was telling the truth and he was lying. So then when he told the news now sees there was widespread fraud, which is just they didn't follow the law. So the people have to know and see that when we have a situation where we have a representative who's standing up in the middle of the battle and he's being shamed and ostracized for all this time, that we have to stand up as well and provide protection. We need to make sure that he's secure so that he can't be attacked, because what our agents do, we're responsible for. So if we let our agents attack Tim, and now we know that Tim been telling the truth the whole time, what good are we? It's literally our fault at that point, because the power of government is in our hands, right? And actually, I'm gonna ask this question real quick because this is getting really good. Adam and Tim, I just want to ask you guys, the things that you guys are seeing happen, right? when it comes to government officials not following the law or changing election law without anybody's permission in the legislature, would you say that is good administration of government authority or bad administration?
Go ahead, Tim.
Repeat the question.
So when you see that, like the WEC and the stuff that even Voss is doing, that are the things that are unlawful, like he's not following the procedure that you guys have for the legislature, it's
a dictatorship. It's maladministration. It's wrong.
maladministration.
It's wrong to the core. And I got to tell you, as the evidence continues to pour out, what still astounds me, and again, I hope my colleagues are watching, is they refuse to change their position publicly to say that I was right. Now, there's a couple of things in play here. The first one is what initially got them: fear, favoritism, and funding. They were threatened, told not to engage in the bill, stay away, don't sign on, it's dead on arrival. Jim Steineke and Robin Voss did everything they could to make me look bad and to bury the bill. Okay, and they all said, well, that's a little toxic. I think I'm going to stay away from that because they're cowards. Okay. Now, the other thing that comes into play now, that as the evidence continues to pour out, and wait for 2,000 Mules, wait for Rig 2020, wait till they see the evidence in those movies that comes out. I think it's pride. One of the most hateful things our Lord has on humans is the sense of pride. And these guys are too proud to admit that they were wrong, that I was right, and holy smokes, we're sorry, let's make it right. They haven't done either. They haven't taken action, probably for one of those two reasons. They're still caught in the fear, favoritism, and funding, and or they're too proud to admit that they were wrong. And I would tell you, there's a few members in the body that probably have that problem, because it's all about them, and they're all that in a bag of chips. I just go down there to serve and make a difference and to get things done. And they want to make a show out of it and keep score and look at me, and it's like, it drives me crazy. So that's one of the reasons why I need to move on from that body, because it's not conducive to efficiency and effectiveness. So
well,
anyway,
I'll tell you this to verify what you are saying, Tim. I've been able to talk to quite a few people in your legislature. I will say that there are not very many, I believe, that are as strong as you. But I will tell you that multiple people in your legislature, I've heard them speak and say that they've been threatened to keep their mouth shut. So with what you say, you didn't tell me to say this, and you didn't know that I knew this, but hearing you say it, I've been taught by multiple people, he's threatening people, telling them to stop. And this is why I get worked up, because
and they let them get away with it, which compounds the problem. If they would have the stones to stand up and say, I know the difference between right and wrong. I'm not going to get played. I'm not going to get puppeteered. No, say no, but they don't, because they don't want to lose their chair. They don't want to lose their prestige, or they don't want to lose the committee they're on, or they don't want to lose help for their re-election campaign. You know what? I don't care. I went to serve, and it wouldn't matter to me if my office was in the basement and I wasn't on any committee and I was never a chair. It wouldn't matter to me. That's not what I'm there for. I'm there to serve the people. So all that other stuff is cosmetics to me, and they get caught up in it. I'm desperate to do the job, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not desperate to keep it. And we need more people that care about doing the right thing for the people, and not so much for themselves. And that's, again, part of the problem. So sorry, you struck a nerve, David, when you said what you said.
Well, look, I would tell you, this is one of the reasons I love you, because from the very first days that, Josh got us all on the phone together so we could talk, and, Carla and the team and the people who work together there, let us talk to you. That's another part of the thing that's amazing. We would have never had a chance to talk to Representative Ramthun if Carla, Aaron, Summer, all the people there in that group who's been continuously doing notice, they made a relationship. And, it goes to show that you guys need to see this, that there's real men and women in government that really want to fight and do the right thing. And it's our problem if they're getting dogged out, if they're getting harmed, if they're, Tim shouldn't have all this stress. And I've seen him with great stress. I mean, you can see it. And I seen on March 16th, the day of the meeting, I seen a little bit of relief in his face. And if you go back and watch the video we did, I even aimed at Tim, and Tim was shaking his head like, yeah, because Tim opened the door for us to be able to talk. And you got to realize that, Carla, Aaron, regular people sending notice to him, he didn't say, oh, screw you, I'm not going to listen to you. He started talking. And just like Jonathan just told us, with his heart showing, he said, he showed his love for Tim. And it's our problem as the people if we just sit around and know that we're in danger. Because what Voss is doing with punking people, that's literally what he's doing. He's trying to be the boss. He's trying to punk people, but he's just the agent. And then you got Tim in humility, fighting and standing. He literally took stuff that we gave in the law and put it on a public record. Why? Because he views the people and understands their value when they bring something real. So you got somebody who's showing love for the people, and then you got somebody who's hating the people. If we don't stand up and stop this, it's crazy. So I wanted to show something so we understand, because Tim said, no, this is maladministration. Adam, what do you think it is? Do you think it's maladministration what's happening, or do you think mal meaning bad, or do you think it's good administration?
David, you guys have, the more you talk, the longer my speech gets. So in all seriousness, this entire campaign, and for the last 4 years, I keep listening to what the president said in his inaugural address. He said, this is not a man getting put in a position. This is the country being returned to the people. Mm-hmm. And that is what we are talking about. I mean, it's 100% maladministration. If you can't see this, a friend of mine says this a lot. He said, if they had a brain, they'd take it out and play with it. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a group of people that, if they actually would think about what they're saying, they couldn't imagine doing this in reality. Mm-hmm. Yep. But we are dealing with, and I say a group because one person in and of themselves can't pull this off. This has to be a group effort. And when you see the complete lack of concern for the citizens of this state, 55 counties wrote from their county party chairs, the Republican Party, 55 counties said, we want a full forensic cyber audit. The Speaker of the House told the American public on the news that Wisconsin was going to do a full forensic cyber audit. We have done everything but that. Miss Justice Gableman has done an excellent job bringing out the truth. But when you have a man who's willing to look at the President of the United States in the face and say that I am going to do something and do the exact opposite, that is the crux of what we are fighting. That is why so many people's eyes have been opened, because it's just like the Let's Go Brandon shirts. I had to explain to a 55-year-old man what the shirt meant because he'd never seen it. But when you think about this, you don't see these riots going on. You don't see a fire in the background. This is a peaceful protest. You don't hear what your ears are hearing. The heart of man is desperately wicked. Who can know it? That is what we are facing. This is not a fight between left and right. This is a fight against principalities and powers and rulers of darkness in high places.
That's right.
When you see that, when you understand it and actually live it, this is the last part I got to get you. Faith without works is dead, guys. We can talk all day. We can go around in circles and talk and talk and talk. I sang the songs. I went to Maranatha Baptist Bible College, Heritage Hall Christian School. I was in the choirs. But just saying the words doesn't get you in the game. Mm-hmm. Everybody asks, why would I do this? I said, we can fight about the election in 2020. I want to. But like Tim said, unless the speaker calls for a special session, there's no change coming. It is up to us to get at the table so that Tim can have a bill to pass and I can put the bill on the desk to get it done. There we go.
Hey.
I know a way we can do it if y'all want to do it.
Bring it. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Tim knows me. I'm all about remedy. If Voss wants to smoke, he can have it. I'm going to tell y'all the real truth. Mr. Gableman told y'all a bit of it. So Mr. Gableman said, the powers that you gave the WEC are not altogether irrevocable, meaning you can take it back at will. So here's the truth. And the reason I asked the question about maladministration is because there is remedy if there's maladministration. The people have all political power. So everything you see written in your state constitution that it says the legislature can do, the executive branch can do, the judges can do, the people had to have the authority first to allow government to do it. And now people in government will say, well, what makes you believe as a regular man and not an attorney or this or that you can do anything? And I say this, I believe that as a regular man who loves God, that I can take the Constitution that you have not studied and run laps with you, around you with it, and destroy every bit of talk that you make in front of the people, in your face or out of your face, any day of the week with no practice. So I want to show you guys remedy. So in the Virginia Constitution, right, we see the Bills of Rights, and it explains what the people have the power to do, not just in Virginia, but in any Republican form of government. And it's very simple. I'll show it. So when we look and we see that the things that he is doing, they are maladministration, I want to look at Virginia Constitution. And this is Josh Barnett's great 5 grandfathers ago, took part in this convention to create this. And if you look here, text of section 3. Now, let's see if this says just Virginia or if it's talking about a bigger group of people or any group of people in the country. This is what it says. That government is, in general, government, or ought to be, instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the people. Are the people secure when the legislature is being ran by a man who is not upholding the law? And the security of the people, nation, or community. Is this just talking about Virginia? It's talking about the nation as a whole or any people. Of all the various modes and forms of government, that is best which is capable of producing the greatest degree of happiness and safety. So the government's job is to protect you and keep you safe. When they're playing with your elections, they're not keeping you safe. They're not keeping you happy. The people right now across America are upset, trying to find answers. Well, here's an answer. And is most effectually secured against the danger of maladministration. Now, Mr. Ramthun and Mr. Steen, you did not just say that we are in the danger of maladministration, but you said that is maladministration. That is maladministration. So it says, and whenever Virginia government, actually, no, that's not what it says. It does not say whenever Virginia government. It says whenever any government shall be found inadequate. They're not doing what you need them to do. They won't prosecute bad actors. The Bar Association members who are attorneys, right? District attorneys, DAs who should be arresting people, right? Putting out warrants, they don't want to do it. The Bar Association members who are over the police don't want to go arrest people. The sheriff, they don't want to go arrest people. Whenever they're found inadequate or contrary to these purposes, a majority of the community hath an indubitable, it can't even be questioned, inalienable, and indefeasible right to reform, alter, or abolish it in such manner. Now, the attorneys are going to say this. How do they abolish? How do they get rid of it? How do they do this? How do they reform things? Can you show us an itemized list of things that you have permission to do? Here's what it said. In such manner as shall be judged most conducive to the public will or public good. In other words, the people have the power when government is acting like this to reform, alter, abolish the whole Constitution and the government to block guys like Voss who are clowns and interfering with the work of real people in government. So Tim been telling the truth this whole time. And people in Wisconsin have not followed the way that they should because somebody else has been defaming this man and you, Mr. Steen, and putting stuff in the newspaper and in media, which is using the media to do what they should not be doing, stifling dissent, which JFK talked about, the media shouldn't be used to cover up your errors. They have been covering things up. And here's what Voss does not understand. Voss does not understand that there is a nation of patriots who are behind Tim and now behind you, Mr. Steen. And we know that we have the power to change government at will. And we know that we have the power to elect a new government. And we know that Tim and Mr. Steen are telling the truth. There's nothing that says, look, in the state constitutions across the nation, you'll find in many of them an inherent right of the people, which is the right in every state. We have the right to change our whole constitution or form of government whenever we're in danger. Now, here's the thing. It'd be really good if they start listening to Tim really fast. But if they are so ignorant to not listen to Tim and Mr. Steen immediately, I guarantee you, by God, the people of this nation will start assembling right away, doing these town halls, and we'll start making decisions for the states based on what people who love the law has to say. And I'll tell you this, if you want to see the legislature of Wisconsin lose their power and the people stand with those who will stand up and tell the truth like we see on this show today, I'll say to you, Mr. Voss, you started by saying, who's all attorneys? Mr. Voss, I'll say to you that I don't give a darn who's an attorney. I'm one of the people who have all power, who elected you and gave you the authority to sit in a seat you're disrespecting. We will give you a chance to listen to Mr. Ramthun and Mr. Steen, a short chance. And then we'll have the people across the country in every state meeting looking for real men like Mr. Ramthun and Mr. Steen. And if you guys believe that we're not going to change the constitutions and change the governments and put things back in a Republican form without dictators, you are sadly mistaken. And I'm going to tell you, this is going to go live and spread around the nation like a wildfire. You will not stop it. You think you have to answer to the people already? Mr. Voss, you would not say the things that you're saying and go get Gable unless you were concerned about the people demanding that something be done. You saw Mr. Ramthun come and stand on behalf of the people, and you tried to interfere. So now the people of this nation are going to stand against the wrong that you guys are doing, and we have all constitutional authority to do so. And with that being said, we're peaceful. We want to see the right things happening. We're not going to be aggressive. We don't want to let you off the fire. We want to talk peaceably to you and see you show us in the law, and you can bring your best attorneys, show the people where you have the power to have attorneys interfere with their business. Show the people where they don't have the right to reform government at will. See, the attorneys have a bad habit of starting the argument in the wrong place. They like to start at letter C. We can't decertify an already certified election. The people are not that dumb. We want to start at letter A. Did you have the authority to certify an election that had invalid things in the beginning? Now, some might argue and say, well, we got presented with some stuff, and because we got presented with the stuff, we had the power to put it forth. Well, you're going to have an issue, and one of our guys, Brandon from Georgia, reminded me of this, and I got to show it to you guys real quick so we know the authorities that we have in dealing with this issue and why we should be standing with Ramthun and Mr. Steen in all that they're saying. 62I is going to be the one I'm pulling up, and I'm going to grab it for you real quick. So the things that they said they certified that were done not according to law were invalid in the first place. They were void because they didn't follow the form that gives you the power. So when the people create law, it gives government the power to act. When the legislature creates law, it gives the other servants power to act. When you don't follow the form, you remove yourself from the authority to act, and you put yourself in a private act that can't be certified by anybody else. It is without law. Now, when we look at the maxims of law, which all government officials swear to be bound by, I'm going to show it to you guys real quick. Can you guys see my screen, 62I?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. A thing void ab initio, meaning void from the beginning, just as Mr. Gableman said. Void ab initio is one that never went into effect. So this election never went into effect. Here's another one, 62C. Things invalid from the beginning cannot be made valid by subsequent act. And they abused the system they used, 62A, a conclusion as to the use of a thing from its abuse is invalid. You 100% cannot abuse something and then say that, oh, it became valid. You can't say your subsequent stamping of something that was void on its face made it legit somehow. So they're trying to start us off in the wrong place. And I want to thank you guys for even coming and talking to us about these things, because we know that you guys have great pressure that comes against you for telling the truth. Now, we haven't heard from Carla. Carla, is there anything that you wish to ask?
Well, but like what you just said, I just had that whole conversation with Representative Mark Bourne the other day. I'm like, are you kidding me? I said to him, I said, okay, Mark, do you agree that crime vitiates everything which springs from it? And he said, well, yes, I do. And I said, then it could not have been certified in the first place. I mean, I have to give him credit. He gave me over a half an hour, one-on-one, at a bar, sorry. But he talked to me the entire time. We went back and forth. He went and got his blue book, and like we were talking about what the legislator could do, Tim. That's why I'm hoping, Tim, you can explain to everybody that's watching how the legislator actually has the power to reclaim those electoral votes. Mark doesn't get that. I'm like, Mark, it shouldn't have been certified. He kept going back to decertify, and I'm like, no, don't go there. We don't want to say decertify. We're pulling back what was illegally certified in the first place.
That's interesting that he checked you on the D word. See, that's their new excuse. First it was show us the proof for evidence. We got that covered. It's not constitutional. We got that covered. Now it's the semantics of the word. That's why I wanted to change the resolution to take the decertification out, so it would be one less excuse for them to have. But at the end of the day, I got to tell you, it's nice to hear that you had a 30-minute conversation with him, but for him to go get a blue book and make it look like he's being studious, you know, they've had 18, 19 months to study up on this deal. And frankly, if they believe fraud vitiates everything, then we should have taken the act. So the mechanism is not defined in the Constitution. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 gives the plenary right to the legislative body to take an act of this type in this nature. Now, the interesting thing about what happened is it's unprecedented and historic. So there's mystery right off the bat. And everybody's got some, well, if we set precedents and we do something here, then, you know, they can do it again at the next election and the election after that. And the answer to that is, well, then don't cheat.
Exactly.
If you're worried about ramifications from an election because it was fraudulent, then don't be fraudulent. That's the answer to the problem. So that's why I get a little tired of these guys with their excuses, because I'm done with, you know, it's milk toast central down there. I'm telling you, nobody has the stones to stand up and do the right thing for the people. So I get kind of tired of it. But anyway, back to my point, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, and the mechanism was not defined in the Constitution. It's up to the citizenry at the time of whenever you had to come up with the mechanism to come up with the mechanism. And I did. The resolution is the mechanism, and we have the right, plenary right to do it. So now it comes down to just execution. And then you get into the, why is there obstruction? Why is there indifference? Why is there deflection? Because it's something to hide, compromised, fear, you know, all of the above. It's unfortunate that Wisconsin had an opportunity to do something in the history of our nation that was going to set the bar for the future of our nation, not only to protect its republic, but to do something up by and for the people that would send a message and say, you cheat, not on our watch, it's going to cost you something. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it. So I'm incredibly frustrated with the entire body of my colleagues. They're more worried about status quo and holding on to stuff that's temporary in nature and it's given to them by the people who put them in office to represent them. But frankly, if they're not going to represent the people, they should get out.
So
And,
that leads up to like my next question, because all of our elected trustees, they actually work for us. Like, you work for us. That was the other thing, the other argument I had with Mark, because I said, what are you doing with the notices that you were getting? And he said, well, we scan the ones from our district. And I said, Mark, what was your oath of office? Was it only for your district, or was it for we, the people in the state of Wisconsin? So that was one discussion. He didn't quite get that one. That was when he went and got the blue book for me and was trying to explain it.
no surprise there.
I know, I actually even mentioned how I said, well, if somebody goes to Tim, it doesn't matter whether they are in his district or not. He realizes his oath of office and he speaks to everybody. I said, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
No, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Can I show so y'all know that section 23 in your Declaration or Bill of Rights in your state talks about fundamental principles of law. So the fundamental principles of law already shows the answer to this situation. I'm gonna tell you this, Representative Ramthun. This idea is not new precedence to undo that which is done wrong. So I'll show you in the most fundamental law that exists where it's here and it's been used all the time. It's very simple. See, they want to argue things and not deal with the fundamentals because you can wiggle your way out of things that are not fundamental. Fundamental things, they're already accepted as true and binding on the people in all, civilized nations. You're not running. So I'll show you what it says about this situation. So if you go to, you see right here, can you guys see my screen? It's going to be 7F. Yep. Now we realize that they did wrong, right? We realize they broke the law, right? We realize they did not follow what the statute said, and everybody understands this. 7F, what is done without consideration or reflection upon better consideration, we should revoke or undo. What is done without consideration or reflection upon better consideration, we should revoke or undo. Now, they will say, well, we got the right to certify. We don't have the right to undo the certification. Hold on now, hold on. 7G. By the same mode by which a thing is bound, by that it is also released or dissolved. So when you have the power to certify or not, when you have the power to say that we vouch for these election results, when you go back and you see all this crazy stuff happen that didn't follow the law, you don't say, well, I guess our hands are tied. We can do nothing because it's not written in plain English in the Constitution that when they cheat using something called dominion that didn't exist when we wrote this, so we can't do anything because y'all didn't mention dominion in the law. Are you serious? No, when we go back and observe, it's game over. When we find out things were done wrong, we should undo or revoke. That's simple. So the maxims of law are the fundamental principles of our law in America. It is the basis and foundation of our law. And I guarantee you, no attorney ever told you about it. Right? But ask them about Coke and the institutes of Coke, the four, and I guarantee you they're never going to tell you about it. But it is the basis and foundation of our entire law. And these maxims cannot be argued. The courts accept them. And even Thomas Jefferson said, look, I don't know of any court case that even one of these were argued against. So this is how fundamental it is. Go ahead, Mr. Steen.
So it's kind of funny when you go through these fundamental questions. The Washington Post asked me what I would have done had I been sitting in the legislature when AJR 120 was put on the floor. And I said, it's a very, very pointed question, but your premise is wrong. They simply want to know, as it sits, let's talk about decertification, right? They want to see how they can trip you up. And I said, this has nothing to do with that word. This is simply a test of our legislators, not to hide behind a voice vote, but to call a roll call vote on the floor and find out if they are listening to the people. Because you vote based on the will of the people, not the will of the party. And thankfully, the Washington Post, David did an amazing job and quoted me exactly as I said it. That here we go. We have issues that took place in our election. We know that they exist right now. And when we found these problems, even before we found these problems, we have the right or the ability to take any bill before the floor and vote on it. And that shows whether or not you're listening to the people. It's called a litmus test. Thanks, David.
That's so real that when we get down to fundamentals, guys, what's right and wrong, our government said that they were going to carry out their duties faithfully. Like military people can get caught up in times of war and actually get prosecuted in martial law courts over stuff like this for not following fundamental principles and their oath. Now, when it comes to the legislature, they're still to follow fundamental principles and their oath, and they swore to do things faithfully. And this is why the WEC and Voss, who's doing things in and of their own will, are not doing right because they're not carrying out their duties faithfully, what we agreed upon. It's as simple as that. And I believe that if we want to correct this and stop this, we have the power to do it. And I'm going to say this, Mr. Steen and Representative Ramthun, I want to thank you guys for even talking to the people, because that is an odd situation in most states, because many of the government officials have been bought off and just want to do wrong. So the first thing I want to do is thank you guys for your great love for America. That's first. The second thing I want to thank you guys for is helping the people to see what happens when we have real discussion with you guys. When we talk about real facts, real law, things that you can see written, it's a way different situation than us just coming and saying, hey, you better listen to us. You're doing wrong. You're crazy. You're going to die, right? People say all types of crazy stuff when they don't know what the law says. But we want to come to you guys peacefully in love and show the law. And we are appreciative of you guys giving the people, not just of Wisconsin, but the whole entire nation that's watching. I'm sure you guys are going to have people watch this from out of the country. Then they're going to learn to take back their power. And so across America, we're getting ready to see a huge change. I believe Stu Peters is going to share parts of this on his show as well. He's the biggest conservative talk show host in the entire nation. So this is going to go on fire. Go ahead, Mr. Steen.
One thing that we kind of glaze over so many times is this is not a Wisconsin issue. This isn't an issue for the 63rd Assembly District. Tim has been speaking about this. You have been speaking about this. Jonathan, Carlos, tons of people have talked about this, but for some reason, conservatives are so conservative that we forget that this is going to take a monumental effort. I'm pointing to myself, we have to first repent. And when we repent, that means you have to turn 180 degrees and change your direction. Otherwise, it's just lip service. So we've made a mistake. And in making that mistake, we've now realized there's a problem and our eyes are open. And this is my final plea to the world right now, and the country specifically. It's time, talent, or treasure. You pick. Tim and I both have a website. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's everywhere. We can be the mouthpiece, but we cannot do all of the work. For some reason, we ignore this thing called money in conservatism. We think that we're just fiscally conservative. We try to constrain all of our resources so we can use them wisely, and that is true. But you cannot fight this beast that we are fighting. It's been established for hundreds of years. You cannot fight it without the resources. So I'm going to make a plea that we have men and women step up and stand with us. Prayer is great. It's required. We need feet on the ground. We need dollars in our pockets to put this message forth. So my website is easy. It's steenforus.com, steenforus.com. I need people to go sign up and come help us knock these doors. Because when you do, Tim will tell you this, when you come knock doors and you see people where they are, you are going to see their heart. And you will see the passion that they have, and it will become real, just like it is to me, and just like it is to Tim and Jonathan and Carla and some. You've met people where they are, and they are hurting. They are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they are standing up, but we will not stop pushing forward, and we need your help. So thanks so much, David. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, just a closing comment, then I have to run. I got a meeting in about 5 minutes, another Zoom call. Yeah, I'll be on Lindell TV tonight, everybody. 6:10 with Brandon House.
Tell them hi.
I appreciate what Adam just stated, and he's right. He's spot on, especially with statewide office. It's a big deal. I tried to run my campaign out of my assembly seat without asking for people's help, and that's hard enough. This is even worse. My website is www.ramthunforgovernor.com. If you'd like to go there and offer your services, offer support, monetary or otherwise, I would appreciate it. In the meantime, I'm going to continue to make a difference, and I will never give up. With that, I have to go. Thank you all very much for this, and I look forward to the next opportunity to be part of anything that serves of, by, and for the people. Good night.
We got you guys back. We will be sending
Tim.
funds.
Good
Thank
night.
you so much, Tim.
Good
God
night.
bless all of you. God bless all of you.
You too.
Good night.
You too.
All right, everybody. So we're going to make sure that we support Mr. Steen and we support Representative Ramthun. And we are going to continue to come together as a people and deal with the things that, and not just deal with by talking about it, we're going to take massive action. We are going to pull back the Republic by God across the nation, and we're going to use the law to do it. And there's not a government official or attorney in the nation that can tell us we don't have the power to do so. And so with that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming on. If you're on YouTube, I want you to please give us some feedback on if this helps you to understand the blessings that come with reaching out to your government with notices and affidavits, letting them know what it is that you have as concern, remonstrance, address, notice, correction, whatever it is that you're delivering to them. We need to get it on paper, and we need to work together and take action. You guys see that this is real life. We actually have things that were done behind the scenes for so many months that you may not have known about, but you can see that it's 100% real, 100% legit, and that the government doesn't look at us like they're crazy. They understand when we're saying things, it comes from the law and it's facts. So no emotion, no feelings, real facts, real law, and coming in the mercy of God and in the love and the power of God, we will win every single time. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. I want to wish you a blessed night. I want to thank you, Mr. Steen, Jonathan, Carla, Summer. I want to thank you guys for all the hard work you guys have done. I want to thank Aaron for opening the doors for us to be able to talk with our government servants, no matter what state it is. We are blessed to have beautiful people who fight and take action, who really get things done. And we got a chance now today to show people what's really going on in the real world and what works. So we want to continue to fight peacefully in love. We don't believe in any fighting physically. We don't believe in aggression and all that stuff. We believe in using the law to stand and not allowing people to run out of the fight. So as long as we're peaceful, they need to be in the fight with us, and they have to use their mind and the law to fight what we say, and it's not possible. So I want to thank you guys for everything you have done. I want to thank you guys for tuning in with us. We love you guys, Mr. Steen. Thank you once again. With that, we're going to let you guys go. Please give us feedback, guys, all over. I don't know if I'm going to be able to leave this up on YouTube because YouTube is going to be very angry that we told the truth. I might just leave it and take the strike. Whatever, it's good. You might not see me for a week. I'll be over on Rumble. We leaving this thing up.
Hey,
Go ahead, Carla.
can John say a closing prayer for us, please?
John, you in?
Oh my, yeah, absolutely.
Put you on the spot, guy.
Sure, yeah. Heavenly Father, we just come before you. We're so thankful that we have an opportunity to gather and meet as people, as the people, Lord, who, as David said and has been teaching us, we have all political power, Lord, and you've granted us the authority to have authority over our government, Father, and we give you thanks. Your word says that your people perish for a lack of knowledge. So we thank you, Lord. And as David thanked us for being in the fight, Lord, we thank him for pointing us towards the knowledge, not just scriptural knowledge, but knowledge of our founding law, which is rooted in you, Lord. So we thank you for that. We say thank you for this evening. We say thank you for Mr. Steen and Mr. Ramthun, Lord God, and we would ask and pray. We plead the blood of Jesus over those two. We plead the blood of Jesus over all of our efforts moving forward, and all of those who are listening, watching, and who are going to be taking action, Father God. We say thank you that we don't have to use other means, that we just have to use the law and dig into it and know it, Lord. So we give you glory for this time, and we just commit ourselves into your care in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys, with that, this video is yours. Thank you guys so much. I love you guys, and we are going to say peace.